about an hour or two.
Acknowledge me.
Level by Marvin Constant, the redshirt freshman out of Tuscaloosa.
Oh, they go by now. Let him know he don't want to stop.
65 yards as the ball was thrown away from the line of scrimmage. Gerald Dixon.
Hey, you forgot to see my book.
And too proper.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in. It's Tuesday night, time for the Bama Standard. We got a great show tonight. We're going to get to it, but before we do all that, you have a few things to do. Those of you who are in our audience, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. If you're in the live chat, listen, we need to hear from you tonight. And if you do right, we may let you ask a few questions. If you're watching the replay, get down in the comment section below and let us know how you feel. Before I introduce my cast, I am Justin Riley, host of the Bama Standard. And listen, we have a wonderful sponsor that makes all of this happen, and that's one Limestone Company. Have you ever dreamed of having beautiful natural stone in or around your home? Don't settle for subpar materials. Check out Limestone Company's selection of natural stone products to meet all of your project needs. Limestone is located in Myada, Alabama, and is one of the oldest, most trusted sources in the state. So contact them today. Tell them we sent you by using the promo code the Bama Standard to receive 10% off your first order. Listen, I got an all-star panel. The illustrious Marvin Constant will be just a little bit late. Work calls, but listen, we still have some heavy hitters. Headlined by 2002 All SEC defensive back, part of Bills Mafia, is both a DB and a scout. He hangs out with 247 and gets them right, but he hangs out with us on Monday nights and Tuesday nights in his show, Constantly Smoking. Ladies and gentlemen, the illustrious Gerald Smoke Dixon.
What's happening?
Yes, sir. Glad to have you back, Smoke. It's been a couple of weeks. We've missed you.
Nah, I doubt it, but it's all right.
And right next to him, he's a senior analyst of the Bama Standard Network. He has been putting out articles like crazy on our newly built website, BamaStandard.com. He's the one who brings all the views to the yard. Ladies and gentlemen, Stephen M. Smith.
Yo, Tuesday. Let's get it.
Yes, sir. And down below, the champion of Galettes on the Strip, the host of the opening kick on Monday nights, a man who has never shied expressing his opinions. He is a undercover Ole Miss fan, but he graduated from Alabama. Ladies and gentlemen, Daniel Petty back in the building.
Man, just ignore anything I say. I haven't been to sleep since me and Smoke got off air last night. You know, I had surgery. I'm tired of Marvin having a big muscle, so I went to get some bicep implants, and it went wrong, and I ain't slept. So here I am. Let's rock.
The first thing is that's your tricep, not your bicep.
Well, they go in from the bottom. They don't start at the top. Look, well, that's the problem.
Hey, listen,
I'm in Florida. They got the shit backwards.
We got into truth, I guess. We got into it. Enough.
Yeah, let's get to the star of the show.
God.
Let's get to the star.
Smoke, we can definitely tell who missed the anatomy and physiology class at Alabama. But we're not here to talk about that. Listen, we got the greatest MC in the country who can deliver the intros like none other. I think that Triple H has called him a few times to join WWE, but they can't pay him enough. Stephen S. Smith, tell the folks who we have visiting us tonight.
Well, we had to touch international soil for this one, baby. We had to go to down under land for this one, baby. We had to go to the pride of Outback. No, baby, Australia for this one, baby. We had to get the real man. I mean, the real man that played for Coach Saban. I mean, the real man that wore that 54. I mean, the real man that did this. I mean, the real man that was a part of national championships, Super Bowl trophies, a man that's still eating quarterbacks. Now he's training others to eat quarterbacks. He's a real monster. Jesse, that monster, Williams.
That's the best
Jesse.
intro I've had lately. I should have recorded that. I might have kept that.
Did you get that kind of intro in Seattle and even in Tuscaloosa? I know it's hard to beat Bryant Denny when they had the lineup, but that's got to come close, right?
I've had a couple of people on the strip yell at me like that, but nothing introed like that, that's for sure.
Don't get an intro when you're going into work at 4 a.m. in the morning?
Not usually. Not usually.
Brother, it has been a minute since we've had you on, and you have done a lot since then, and we're going to talk about it all tonight. We're excited to have you back. You're one of the OGs who got it done and made people fear that defensive line of Alabama. You gave folks anxiety, and we're going to talk all about it. Let me tell people about the rundown tonight. We're going to talk about Jesse's path to Alabama. It was interesting, and he's working right now to make things a little bit easier for those who were trying to go to Australia to the States than what he had it. We're also going to talk about how he made an impact at the University of Alabama. We're going to have some great stories come our way. We got a motivational story. We're going to hear Jesse's approach to overcoming cancer. I was truly moved when I read about it, so I can't wait for the audience to hear about it. We're going to touch a little bit on life after football. And, man, Jesse, you got some great things. I can't wait till you unveil that. And then we're going to finish it up by allowing him to tell us his thoughts on the current team because you've been heavily involved. So let's go ahead and get things going. Smoke, you talked a little bit about this. You wanted to focus on this as we were pre-planning going into this episode. So I'll start with you, man. You want to open up on this topic right here for us?
You know what, Jesse? Most people don't know I'm also a foreigner. I was born in Jamaica, so I wasn't exactly the path of Jesse Williams. Here we go. Listen,
he ain't no damn foreigner. He is from Mississippi. Don't let him tell you no different.
Boy,
okay, that's the other.
Wait a minute.
Wait, talk about the kid coming into the wrong movie.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's 1999 All-SEC linebacker Marvin Constant, who apparently has his geography completely wrong.
Mississippi, Jamaica, potato.
Yeah, right. Same
Maryland, Maryland would be where I went to high school, Marvin. I know they both.
Philadelphia, Mississippi. I'm a firm. You gotta be from Mississippi.
That's the second part of constantly smoking. He's the one that's constantly, but he's not smoking nothing good.
He's smoking what comes from where smoke is actually from.
But either way, I've always been interested in your path, and I just would like to hear that just from your point of view in your story, how you went from Austria to Alabama.
Yeah, it's pretty unique, to be honest. Like, it was at a time where there wasn't much really going from Australia or New Zealand, like the Pacific, really, to the US. So it was like, honestly, no one I knew, including guys I played basketball most of my life with, knew anything about like how to get to the US, especially for football. As soon as I say football, everyone would be like, they'd probably just go straight to like the longest yard or like, any given Sunday. That's all they could sort of put together. And I was like, okay. We started playing. So basketball was my main sport most of my life. And then I ended up getting into American football, gridiron, they call it down here, through some friends in high school. And I went down there and I was like, oh, man, I get to go down there and hit kids and not get in trouble. I was like, all right, cool, let's do this. And, pretty unique novelty in Australia, I would say, in comparison to like rugby, Aussie rules and whatnot. So I went down there. I probably, first game would have been in front of 7 people and 6 being my family. And I sort of fell in love with it, fell in love with the contact, the competition, and I ended up working up the ranks. I played for the club, my states. I played for Australia. And then actually one of the games I played for Australia against New Zealand in sort of like a World Cup qualifier, a small junior college came out to kind of guest coach / try and steal punters and for me. And I was actually playing defensive line. I was playing middle linebacker, and I was about 330 playing middle linebacker. So I was doing my best to take people's heads off coming through the middle. And, I was in pretty good shape. I was still playing basketball at like a national level. And only kind of playing football just to get rid of, my childhood traumas essentially. And, I played the game. I got MVP. I had ridiculous stats. Like, it wouldn't even make sense. Like, I think I blocked 4 kicks in the one game and like all this craziness. And the junior college sort of came. It was Arizona Western Junior College. He came up to me after the game and was like, you have a really good shot at playing in the U.S. And at the time, he could have been speaking Chinese to me, man, because I couldn't even tell you where, geographically Arizona was, let alone, hole in the wall, Yuma, Arizona. And he actually didn't have any scholarships. So that's what kind of like, I don't know what to do from here. And he said, if you pay for the first semester, which I'd go straight into the fall, he said, we'll give you a spot and we'll see how you do. So at the time, it was about, with the currency exchange, it was about 8,500 Australian for the semester. And I ended up working 3 jobs, like a fast food restaurant, a cleaning company, all this sort of stuff. And I saved up enough money just to pay for my first semester at junior college. And by the time I got flights, I left the country. I was 17, turned 18. I left with 1 bag, and I think I had $200 something, and I had Jerry Dominguez, who was the defensive coordinator, who I met. I had his name and phone number written in my passport, and it said, call when I get to the airport. And then I left the country. And, from there, going from Australia, even in the summer, to landing in Yuma, Arizona in the heat was an experience in itself. And, once I got there, I had no plan B. I wasn't going to be nothing else, to be honest. I wasn't, going to go to university. I was probably just going to go and, kind of fall into sort of hood ways in the gentlest way possible. That was kind of where my upbringing and direction was kind of going, especially how rough I was. And I think I was like, once I got to junior college, it was like, all right, well, metaphorical, like line in the sand. It was like, okay, if anyone wants to cross it, the front teeth are mine, and I just got to make sure I stick to what I got to do. And I went to junior college. I went to Arizona Western. I was competing against, like, back then when dudes would bounce down from Division I to go to JUCO and then try and bounce back out. We had a really, really good team, and they were pretty tough. And I went in there, no expectations. No one expected me to play at all. I was just this kid from Australia with the mohawk, and I was 18. I had face tattoos and all that sort of stuff. So they were pretty hot out the gates, and I ended up playing that whole semester. I started every game. I was all conference, and by the end of that, I was the #1 ranked junior college recruit in the country. So after that semester, they obviously put me on scholarship, and then I was kind of on the map from there. And that's when, my first offer was Hawaii, just because they sort of knew I was from Australia. And then my second or third offer, I'm pretty sure, was Coach Saban. So he actually Jim McElwain had a friend that lived in Arizona in Yuma, and he would come out, watch the games, and notice me. He was like, hey, I was like 340. I was like hawking dudes down. Like, I was just lifting and just running every day I possibly could. And I would just, most of my journey seems like a little bit of delusion and like a little bit of luck and a lot of hard work. And that was kind of like the culmination of where it sort of kicked off with, Jim McElwain's buddies seeing me. And then, put me on Alabama's radar and ended up getting offered my sophomore year by them and kind of opened the floodgates up. To be honest, that choice of where to go, I had 60-something offers. Like, I spoke to Joe Paterno on the phone when he was alive, Saban. I spoke to every head coach around, and I didn't even know what they looked like. I walked straight past Saban in the cafeteria. I walked straight past him. I didn't know who he was. They were like, oh, do you know who that is? I said, that old guy? I was like, no.
That old guy.
Like, I met, all the Kiffins. I met everyone came out and see me. Ed Orgeron used to, scream at the phone to me, and, a bunch of these guys. And, my decision really came down to, when I was a young man, I used to think about if I was ever going to do a book or, someone tell my story. I already had such a youthful upbringing with a lot of adversity, and it was putting me in the right direction. And I knew if I was going to tell the story, I had to take the hardest route possible. It only felt right. So I could have went to, Hawaii, UCLA. I would have been the man. You know what I mean? I would have been the #1 recruit. I would I would have had the prettiest girlfriend and the nicest whatever car they probably could have afforded back then. And the other option was go to an Alabama or an SEC school, and Alabama was the top one at the time. And I got to earn every second I get to touch the grass. And for me, that was the challenge in it. And also from a young age, just I guess through my upbringing and my travels, I've always, one of my internal goals is always just be a good man. And the values I believe that sit along with that, Coach Saban really resonated with me when I went to my recruiting trip. Honestly, in the first 30 minutes, by the time I got through the first day in Tuscaloosa, there was like September 10, 2010 San Jose State opener. I was pretty much on the phone to my parents that night after they dropped me off at the capstone. I was like, hey, I'm just going to commit here, and then like we'll finish all the recruiting here and then start from there. And that's pretty much what I did. The next day I went up to – before I even saw all the academics and all that, I went and seen Coach Saban and said, hey, I stood up in his office. I reached over the desk and I said, I'm just going to commit here. I said, we'll shake on it and I'll make sure I'm ready to go. And then that was it from there.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around an offensive coordinator trying to scheme against a 330-pound middle linebacker. How do you do that?
If it helps, I don't think there are many OCs in American Football Australia that are really doing much scheming at all, to be honest. It's more just like, hey, get the guy the ball and let's see how far we can run. And on defense, it's usually just tackle the guy with the brown thing and see how we go. It is developing a lot, but back then it was just like raw talent. You know what I mean? I was lucky enough. It was just, again, right place. And I was playing hard. Like if it was one thing I was doing, you would see my energy on the field, and I was out there. I was trying to punish kids. If they wanted to be on the same field as me, they had to go through a few things, And I loved it. Honestly, it gave me, from a basketball background, I was pretty athletic, and I played a bit of tight end. I played middle linebacker. I was playing fullback. I was playing offensive line. Then I was defensive line. And it was only really when I got to JUCO, he was like, "Oh, you're only playing defensive line." I was like, "Oh, what?" I was like, I thought I might play fullback or something as well. They were like, "Nah." So it was kind of like a little, I don't know, it was like a little bit of taste. It gave me a good experience and learning a little bit more about football and playing different positions, more so than like, most of the kids now that come up, it's like, oh man, I only play this position and that's it, nothing else. Where I was like, I was happy to get other skills. I was very interested in trying to learn to be good. I knew if I knew more, I'd be more valuable to teams or whatnot.
Well, Jesse, I definitely understand being an athlete, playing multiple positions, multiple sports. When we were in school, we used to go to the rec, and I used to dunk on smoke regularly. So I get it. I just, so I completely understand. But Jesse, coming from Australia, where you say it was a small population watching games, to go into junior college, which there were a few more people watching, but probably not many more, and then transitioning to Tuscaloosa Bryant-Denny Stadium. We all know that is one of the toughest environments in college football to play in. What was the most difficult thing, or the thing you struggled with the most making that transition from Australia to junior college to Alabama?
Yeah. So the jump from like Australia to JUCO wasn't that bad, to be honest. Like you said, it was Yuma, Arizona is like a small like border town in Arizona. So I was getting used to like the smallness of it, which I enjoyed. I'm a big peace and quiet sort of guy. I don't really like the city or whatnot, but I think culturally was okay. Arizona was okay. I got used to like eating way more Mexican food and people trying to speak Spanish to me all the time because they thought I was Mexican. But I think, the biggest jumps were really to Tuscaloosa, to be honest. And I think they were all in good ways. Like the stadium size was one. So that first A-Day I got to play in my first spring, I think it was like 96,000 or something like that. And I was like, I was showing people photos of that first A-Day, and people thought I was already in the NFL. Like they thought, oh, he's playing in the NFL already. Like people in Australia didn't understand. Like even when I went to junior college, people were like, oh, like how much do you get paid, or like what is it like? I'm like, dude, I'm eating ramen noodles and fresh air to survive, and people think I'm playing the NFL. But I love the transition. I think one of my, like, I would say positive attributes in personally is when I left Australia, I knew the only way I would make this whole situation work is if I was very open-minded. I was able to just to adapt to everything. Like, if we're doing stuff, I'm like, I'll try. You know what I mean? Like, hey, worst can happen is I die. And I'm like, well, that's going to happen anyway. So we might as well, sort of just walk through the fire here. All the way down to like, I was doing random trips to Mexico and, like seeing different things. And then in Tuscaloosa, just like, I'm just learning and going through so many different experiences, like nonstop. It was like a weekly thing for me. Like I was trying to like really like wear myself as best I can down into, the person or the man I wanted to be. And I knew football was going to be something big. So I was like really trying to, sort of meander through without getting in trouble or back then, if you would believe it, trying not to stand out too much, and focus on what I wanted to focus on. But to be honest, I think the biggest change was from Arizona just to Alabama was the culture of people. I wasn't expecting everyone to be so nice. I think just in general, to be honest, I think people in Australia, it's a bit faster and less connected, I would say, at a personal level, where is not the case. Like even now when I go to Tuscaloosa, people still would just be like, if they ask how you're going, they're generally asking like, how you doing? It's not just like colloquial and just like, sort of beat it. I really enjoyed it though. It was a good change for me. And it kind of really developed me into the man that I wanted to be, in like connecting and building relationships with people. And like, I love country music. I like all that stuff. I like barbecue, all that sort of stuff. So it took a couple of months to get used to. I still don't, I don't drink sweet tea or anything because my teeth just too sensitive, too much sugar, to be honest. But everything else, I'll ride with. You know what I mean? Like I'll eat brisket until the day I die. And I'll listen to country music at the same level as well. So, it was all positive. It was a lot of adjusting. It was a lot personal. You know what I mean? Like, I think as a young man, I was open to everything. So like, getting into little scuffles with frat kids or like, I remember running into Greg McElroy at a frat one time and I didn't know who he was. I was about to throw him over the fence, so it was like, it was like a learning curve getting around.
Wait.
You know what I mean?
Jesse, that was a rite of passage playing football at Alabama, getting into scuffles with frat boys.
Yeah. Well, I stayed at the dorms, right? Because I was coming from JUCO and I didn't know like we could live anywhere else. So, SAE is right there. And, Wilson Love and all them boys is all SAE guys. So they'd always invite you over. And, I just stand out like no other. I'm the only one wearing shorts and a tank top, and everyone's wearing khakis and like boat shoes, and so everyone wants to wrestle or do something, and I've only got two speeds. It's either sleep or full steam ahead. You know what I mean? So it was like something's bound to happen.
Petty was that way at Galette's on the Strip, so I'm gonna let him take over now. What you got for Jesse?
Man, what's that? Like you took Marvin's question. I was going to ask more of the cultural side of it. So you kind of answered that. And then you kind of went in on the Saban, but it was funny. You mentioned you walked by him and didn't even know who Saban was. You didn't know who any of these coaches were. Did you come to the decision and just figure out Alabama on your own because of that meeting? Or did you have some people that were like, hey man, everybody's offering you, but that Alabama one, that's probably the one you want to check out.
Yeah. So I would say I definitely had help. It started off with like, the coaching staff of my JUCO, like, they're trying to get paid. So they're trying to send kids to the best schools, whatever. So as soon as Alabama came in, everyone was my best friend from then on. And I'm like, I don't know how this goes. So, but I was lucky enough. My roommate at the time, a guy named Andrew Power, he from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, he helped me kind of build the whole ecosystem out of all my offers. So it started with one whiteboard, and then I was another whiteboard. I ended up like 3 or 4 whiteboards in my dorm room, and I was writing it down. I would write the team, the coach, all the way down to like this scheme, how many guys in the defensive line they have, all that sort of stuff. And he would come in and be like, hey, these guys are good. Or like, it's like, if it's Hawaii, he was like, wipe that shit off, or like, we're not doing that, or like all that sort of stuff. And it really painted a clearer picture for me, because I didn't want to go in with too many biases, because, you know, different guys I would speak to on the team, you know, if they were from the South, they'd be blowing Alabama up, or if they were from, you know, California, they'd be like, "Nah, you got to go to USC or whatever." And I didn't know anywhere, so it was like, you know, I was getting D2 offers as well, and I was like, "Wait, are these guys good?" I was like, you know, back then they used
Come on,
to,
man, San Diego State, they got a cool mascot.
Hey, SDSU was one of the schools, and you know, they used to send. I had boxes of these handwritten letters, you know, and like these really bad photoshopped images of me with jerseys and shit on. And, I'd be like, "Oh my god!" The whole coaching staff sent me fucking handwritten Christmas letters. I'm like, "Oh, these guys must like be good." And my roommate's like, "Nah, chuck that shit away." It was like, you don't want none of that. It's like, I remember one of them specifically was Oklahoma State. It was orange and black, and they would have sent, man, they would have sent 7 like full grown trees full of letters stacked up in my dorm. Like, I felt bad because when I actually moved from my dorm to Alabama, like I had to throw away, like I would have thrown away, I would say maybe thousands of letters. And my roommate and my parents at the time, they were like, maybe we should check if there was any money in them instead of just throwing them out. You know, very, very hood-like. But I knew back then we weren't getting no money. So, but no, it was, to be honest, the delusion and the naivety put me in a good direction, because I was really guided by my values of what I wanted to achieve, not like the, you know, I didn't care how many people was in the stadium. I didn't, you know, I just knew I could wear Adidas to play. So like, I wasn't going to go to Tennessee. I could wear Adidas. I just liked the Nike. That was like one of the only things I was like, I just want to wear Nike and do that. That was what I wanted to do. And obviously a lot of schools are Nike. And I think those were the only things that really mattered to me. And then when I finally met Coach Saban and we sat down, he was pretty early on. So his trips were pretty regular. I think he came out 5 or 6 times during one season to see me. So I knew, I was like, okay, this dude's wasting a lot of jet fuel to get out here to see me. But I also got to draw a really good comparison to other head coaches and coordinators that came out. And, you know, if you put Saban in a room with a lot of other guys, like that dude's changing the damn atmosphere. And then when he talks, he sets himself apart. So that really helped a lot as well. And then once I saw Tuscaloosa, and I was like, I just saw how nice it was. And I know everything felt like I need to in myself, I need to be good enough to deserve here. Because this was like, wow, from where I'm from, or like places I've had to play sports or live, it was the Holy Land already. So I was like, man, I just need to focus on getting to Alabama's level, not trying to just jump across at a level like a small Division I.
Jesse, I'm from Tuscaloosa. It is not that nice. So clearly the bar has to be low here.
No,
in terms of cities. Come on now.
Now,
no, I'm not.
I do got this question.
15th Street. I'm going the other way.
Jesse, they make jokes about me being the champion of galettes, which that takes a lot of work for a dude like me with an accent like mine. How quick did you figure out that your accent, you were kind of fishing with some cheated bait?
Yeah, like, to be honest, it was like automatic. Like, obviously in junior college, I used to get the Mexican thing all the time because we were so close to Mexico. But, you know, in the South, it was different. You know, to be honest, and I don't really say this a lot, but I was getting a lot of the black girls would attack me a lot of the time. So I was like, in the summer, I would get really dark because I tan, like be running outside and conditioning. But then they heard my accent, so I was like this novelty thing. I had a blonde mohawk. You know, I felt like I was pretty jacked at the time, so I was just getting harassed pretty regularly.
Rough life.
I actually never went out, to be honest. I've only been to Galettes twice in my whole life. I went once while I was in school, and then I went, you know, maybe 2 years ago, I was back in town to visit some people. And same with like Rounders. I've only been there twice in my whole life. I made sure I didn't go while I was playing, just because I was, to be honest, I was probably borderline to my detriment. I was so locked in, like I couldn't like I don't drink or smoke. I never.
No,
did
that's
my
not a
my whole
detriment.
life, and
The detriment are those places. Those places can bring great players down. You did the right thing by focusing on the craft, my man.
well, I just saw a lot of the don't get me wrong, the Australian culture of drinking in sports is very strong, and I never sort of dove into that at any point. But when I went to college, I saw it almost was like too normalized to be just hanging out at places, and like me being a big ass dude, standing up in the same spot for a long period of time. Like I love the quote, like, gangsters don't dance, we boogie. I think the next level up is obviously I just stand there standing still. So it's it takes a toll standing around, and to be honest, I never went to college to find the love of my life. I never went to college there to, win any awards, or to be honest, I didn't even go to college to have fun. I went there to really achieve something I wanted to do. And I did a really good job of never deviating from that. Like I never got in trouble, probably because I never was out anywhere. Like I was really between my apartment and the weight room, like the facility, and that was about it. That was, to be honest, that's all I know. And I lived right behind the facility on 15th Street, so like I never went nowhere else besides maybe Publix. And I did like Walmart. I fell in love with Walmart, so I liked going to Walmart. But everywhere else, I was very dulled, and I kind of, when I talk about my journey now, especially to the younger kids that are going through that, for me, it was never what I did, but how I did it. And I played a lot of football, I did a lot of things, but the type of character, the type of person I was while I did that is much more important to me than the things that I actually did.
Awesome. All right, but let's get into the whole Alabama subject. Before we do that, before I get to Stephen Smith, I want to remind everyone of our other sponsor. Listen, the college football season for Alabama fans truly never ends. So what you need to do to celebrate the Tide year-round is grab yourself a Tidal towel. Go to www.whitwillsports.com today. Enter the promo code STANDARD. Get a nice discount courtesy of your favorite network, the Bama Standard Network. That's right, folks. Grab your Tidal towel, as Petty is showing right there in the screen, at www.whitwillsports.com. Stephen and Smith, the baton is finally coming to you as we open up this topic, and this is what the fans really want to hear. So I know you got something that you've been thinking on. You've had enough time to think about it. So open us up. What do you got for Jesse?
So, Jesse, when you look at Alabama, people obviously the overarching theme is Coach Saban, but Scott Cochran held the key to that weight room. And a lot of those young men had a personal relationship with Coach Cochran to where they could talk to him about anything. He would talk to them about anything. And I know he's the booming voice and he's the master of psychology, but just from your perspective, what did Scott Cochran mean to you during your time there?
Yeah, he was big because I was always in the weight room, right? He played a pretty big role. I would say equally him and Coach Terry Jones Sr. was like, they were right there. And like my first workout, I remember, it was me and Quinn Dahl coming in. We were the JUCO transfers supposed to, come in and make a difference and whatnot. And we had Coach Jones first day. He was out there trying to make sure I died or I didn't make it through the next couple of days. And, I got through. We all threw up. So, but I got through it. You know what I mean? I was throwing up Schwen from the strip like it was no other. And, it's and I love Schwen, but it was pivotal for me because, I didn't have a lot of guys through my path that were not only guys that would just break you down, but guys that would build you back up and mentor you back up in other ways. And they were on me like all the time. Me and Quinn Dahl were under pretty tight scrutiny coming in that spring because they needed us ready to play in the fall, all the way down to like me and Quinn Dahl, if we weren't making weight, we'd be sitting in the Rex steam room, with a bunch of Noble students. I'm sitting there with a full sweatsuit on, because we didn't want to have to run with Coach Jones. So, but Cock was big on that. Coach Saban sits in this like, especially the old weight room too. It would sit up in the corner up there because I would come in and I would work out real early in the morning, which is a kind of funny story as well. and I could see his like silhouette up there or him watching, and I was like, I would try and work out where he couldn't see me, like in these like little patches. But Coch's always been good. I still am very, very connected with him. Talk to him all the time, and like every chance I get back and I'm around. Obviously now he's back coaching. Try and get over to West Alabama or whatnot. But it was an important role. I knew from Australia coming to the U.S., I had to physically develop, and I love lifting weights. I love being in the weight room. I love pushing myself. And my junior year, me and Cochran got along really well. And then my senior year, we started butting heads because I wanted to push the boundaries a little bit, almost a full-blown, wrestling match when the day I benched 600 pounds, because Eddie Lacy tore his pec that morning, and I was in like the 11 a.m. lifting group. So I came in ready to bench, and he said, no one's maxing anymore. And I pretty much just said, get the fuck out of here. I said, I worked the whole summer. I said, I'm doing it. So I said, we either do it in the group or I'm doing it later this afternoon, and I won't have all you coaches around with me. So you get to choose. And stuff like that, but also as simple as, I was the first guy that they were kind of the only one allowed. I would cut the sleeves off the workout shirts, the gray ones, not to stand out or be different, but when I would run, because my damn lats and everything was so big, it would just like rub my arms too much. So I was just like, I got to cut these shirts, man. Like I was fighting with Cochran and Springer, the equipment guy, about these shirts. But, it was all moving in a positive direction, our relationship. And it was part of the deal. He knew that I was committed to football and train and pushing myself. He was just trying to make sure I didn't die in there on the weekend when I'm in there trying to bench, 600 pounds with no spot and whatnot. But it's always been, a good relationship, and between him and Coach Terry. And Coach Terry, ended up being my mentor for strength and conditioning when I came back and coached at Alabama after I retired. So, and like, I'm friends with, his sons and like everything around. It's just always been, long lasting relationships. But, the flavor is always, winning. Winning is where it's at. And I was always on board with that. So we always got along.
Most definitely. So, Jesse, Barrett Jones said in an interview not too long ago, leading up to the Notre Dame game, his coaches asked him to watch film on Notre Dame's front. And he came back and they asked him what he saw. And the first thing out of his mouth was, Coach, they're terrible. Of course, we all know how the game played out. But did you have the same reaction from watching the film? What was your reaction, and how come Coach Saban wouldn't let you carry the ball on the goal line a couple of times in that game? I mean, it was your last game. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's a dagger too. But so the one thing about, we watched a lot of film on them, as you can imagine, and Kirby is obviously unrivaled in regards to the preparation side. But film has always been deceptive, especially for me, because I didn't grow up watching a lot of film like in high school or whatnot. So it was always hard. Like even when I would like watch Tennessee film, I'm like, oh, they look all right. And then you go out there and they're 6'5", 330, and you're like, holy shit, the angle of the film was completely off on this. I was like, these are not normal sized people. I was like, what's going on? And I was kind of like weary about that. I watched the film and they looked leaner than most of the SEC offensive linemen. But, one of the real first times, and I don't really think about, the Saban quote of like, we just line up and whoop the other dude. We don't really prepare in a ways like personally towards them. But because we were down there for the national championship, the first time I locked eyes with one of them, both teams went to the Miami Heat game, and we were walking around and we saw them. As you can imagine, everyone's puffing up and like, let's go. Let's see what's going on. And I saw them and I was like, is that the team? I was like, where are the bigs at? I was like, I've got with me, I've got like, I got DJ Fluker that's like created in a lab somewhere in Alabama. Yeah. I got Cyrus. I got my double team on a daily basis is Chance Womack and DJ Fluker and Barrett Jones, if you feel like throwing in, so it's like, I saw them and I was like, no, I'm like, they must have had the big somewhere else. They look like tight ends or something. And then we roll out to the game, and I moved my senior year from 5 technique down into playing nose. So I sort of sat around anywhere from like 335 to 340. And then I was like coming out the gates, like I'm pretty big. I'm a pretty big guy. I'm like pads and shoulder pads, helmet on, like, and I went out there. As soon as I saw him, I was like, man, these guys are going to have a tough time today. Not to mention, other guys on the defensive line and even now edge rushers that are probably the same size as their tackles, which was a little different to what I'm used to, and not, LSU trying to run power down my throat. But it was eye-opening, and obviously we saw how it went. It was, I don't like to talk too much about it, but like at halftime and like even quarter time, like people are like talking about like where we're going to eat dinner and like what are they supposed to be doing after the game, like what time's it done, and in the most like positive, like Saban was not talking about that. You know what I mean? Then it was private. It was mainly like, it's all the frat boy walk-ons that are like, yo, I'm going to Club Live after. But I didn't really get to play after kind of halftime anyway. You know what I mean? We had sort of our twos and stuff in there, so I was stone cold by the time we got done. Like I wasn't really in there much, but it was an interesting situation for me to finish on something like that. Like, we had a bunch of games that season where it was like, I think the first 6 games I didn't play after halftime because we were just putting 50 on people, and I didn't expect it in the national championships, especially with so much build up and with Manti and everything else around. Like everyone, Alabama wants to, it's going to get upset or whatever, and for it to go how it went, it was kind of anti-climax for me, to be honest, because I came in the game like, man, I'm ready to roll. I didn't know. They might have had, Rudy on the sidelines for all I care. I was ready to throw down, So it's but then, carrying the ball was another one. That Bobby Williams, man, I tell you what, I don't think I'll ever forgive Bobby Williams on that one. But I didn't expect to play fullback in my senior year. Bobby, I hear him in practice, him and Saban screaming my name, and I'm like, oh man, I'm done. Something's up here. Like I've accidentally done something. They called me over, told me to, I'm going to play fullback. They didn't tell me I was only going to block and, I'll be handing out. I'll be, lead blocking for every touchdown of Eddie Lacy and TJ Yeldon's in short yardage. I was pretty much down there handing out CTE like gift vouchers. I would never get a shot to carry the ball, and it was annoying because I really wanted to, because everyone was just like, man, just give it. I obviously played rugby, and it was just like, just give me the ball. Like I just wanted to get a shot of me just jumping over the pole, like that other iconic Alabama shot. Obviously, I probably might not jump that far or high, but I definitely wanted to. And Bobby, just every week, the conversation on Tuesday, Wednesday would be like, hey, we're going to run this. We're going to run this play this week. Jesse, let's practice you getting the ball because this might happen this week. And it just was every week until the national championship. And, man, I'm still waiting to get the ball.
Jesse, that's called bait. They're just baiting you.
Yep.
I thought they cared about me more than that. You know what I mean? I was like, Bobby's looking after me. They play their mind games. He comes over and he's like, hey, Saban don't know this. Hey, we're going to run this special play. We're going to give you the rock this week. I'm like, oh, let's go. And I'm like, in practice, I'm getting the ball, and I'm just like, I'm trying to mow dudes over. And and then come to the game, it's like they forgot I fucking existed, And I was I might as well have no harms out there. You know what I mean?
Smoke, what you got for my guy?
Jess, you know what? Speaking about rugby, in my personal opinion, the best offensive lineman maybe ever in the NFL, Jordan Myada. And we talked about this, the path that you created and the impact at Alabama. What impact do you believe that you had on Jordan getting that opportunity to get to the United States, train with one of my former teammates, Aiden Durden, to becoming one of the most premier offensive linemen in the NFL?
Yeah, I think it's I think me being like I'm like the OG for all these guys. I'm super old, and like I was like sort of chopping the trees down metaphorically for the path that's there. And I actually spoke to Jordan the day he got sort of picked up and all that. I knew he would do well, not because of his size, because I knew that Coach Stoutland was there, and I know Coach Stoutland is a huge fan of a project, and he throws some time at that. So I knew he was going to get the appropriate coaching. And like, if you couldn't get someone that big to be good at offensive line, that athletic, then you probably shouldn't coach offensive line in the NFL. But it's obviously worked out. I think where the difference is with a lot of it, obviously he skipped the college part just because he went through the IPP, which is still, to be honest, he was probably like a diamond in the rough in the IPP. I try not to send too many guys to IPP. Our programs really push heavily to get into school just to get your education and understand football. We've seen too many guys go through the IPP, not so much Jordan, but go there and, well, I would say even Jordan, it took him about 2 or 3 years to really understand, like, hey, this is football. And, you know, in this day and age, teams aren't willing to invest time like that. So you're either going to get bounced right back to me or you're not going to be in a position you want to. So, but the opportunities are huge at the moment. I think, you know, a lot of eyes on the Pacific because of guys like Jordan and other guys we have in the NFL, more than just punters. The punter's always going to be there. You know, my guys Pro Kick in Melbourne, they send 7 million kids a year, it feels like. But it's an amazing situation with the side naturally out here, similar to Jordan. You know, I probably got 100 Jordans roaming around out here. It's just like, how do we connect that gap right? And right now, for me, it's education and coaching. And that's the difference maker for the international stuff. It's the talent's here. It's just how do we get them across? And, you know, IPP snagged a good one with Jordan. They haven't really struck gold since then in regards to someone as effective. And my argument to them is like, you just got to start them younger. They need more reps. Like, especially offensive defensive line is probably an easier entry level to get in. Like, I can teach you to roughly play defensive line and look like you understand defensive line in a day. But like, to get a skill guy in, or even like a mid-skill guy at how athletic they are now, is like, you need to be so instinctful, and you only get that from reps. You know what I mean? And like, I can't get kids 1,000 reps out here a year because, well, they just don't play that much football, you know? So I think the next step is definitely that, but the gates are wide open right now, and we're kind of full steam ahead with that because the opportunity that Jordan has created for himself is something that can be, you know, replicated for many other kids. And I think, to be honest, my story is great. Jordan's story is great. But, you know, my passion right now is focusing on the next kid's story and so on and so on.
You perk Smoke up. He's going to be like Kevin Bacon in the air up there. He's going to be out there all over the damn outback trying to find the next Jordan.
Hey, come out.
You saw how I sat up when he said he
yeah, no, you perked up like, what? Okay. I got plane tickets. I'm over.
Jordan's my guy. You can't find 5 other human beings on this planet Earth that looks like that, moves like that, and just play that nasty, and how natural it looks. And like you said, Jesse, not a lot of reps. Yeah, he's just getting better, and he's the best.
It takes time, you know. And you know, the crazy thing is all those attributes, like playing tough, being tough. Like a lot of our kids out here, man, they wake up every day of the week like that. A little bit because it's situational, but also because like culturally, like these kids are just tough. You know what I mean? Like they're all playing rugby, like no pads, nothing like that, or Aussie rules and like banging. So when I'm like, oh, we're going to hit, like there's no difference. There's no like, hey, we're going 50%. That don't exist out here. It's like walk through or it's like we're chopping people down, you know? So it's cool to work with. It's so raw, you know. I feel like I'm barely scratching the surface, and we're like in the thousands around the country. And there's just more and more coming out the gates everywhere I go. Like we're getting kids swapped over from basketball that get too big for basketball, and Aussie rules, rugby, track, like all these crazy things. And for me, it's never a sell. It's just explaining the opportunity that the U.S. And continuing a career through education, what that can add to your life. Because there's no programs in Australia currently in any professional realms with the same budgets or the same outcomes in mind for the athletes. That's what I push, you know.
Marvin, you're up, sir. What you got for Jesse?
I'm curious. I'm real curious about this. Growing up in Australia, is there someone that you patented your game after in the NFL? And what was your signature move?
I would say no, because, you know, collectively, I probably watched 6 NFL games on TV, and they were all the Super Bowl. because that was the only game they played. And I didn't really know. The only person I came close with, one of my coaches here, before I left, he gave me this Warren Sapp rookie card. And I had a Warren Sapp jersey, and I didn't even know who he was. I just had the jersey, you know what I mean? Like, I was like, I look back now and I was like, what a fool. But, you know, I really tried to – I watched a little bit of that Miami film. I fell in love with, like, the attitude of what football was for those early Miami teams. So I wouldn't say a specific person, but I really tried to carry the attitude of that. And the only other person, which is going to sound crazy, is Lattimore from the program. That was kind of like, I knew if I was big and jacked and I painted my face and I was happy to headbutt through a glass window, you know, if I fit that build, I'd be all right, you know. And it's funny because when I show people that now, people are like, holy shit, that's exactly kind of where you were going with that. But I just always liked the tough players that were just like, you know, like Brian Cushing and dudes like that. It was just like, there's probably a little bit of delusion, but it's just heart. And it's just like, let's go, like, till the wheels fall off, physically and metaphorically, which I have also probably done as well. But that would be the biggest one is the comparison to those guys, and more just like the attitude of it. You know, not so much the values of like Lattimore in the movie. Obviously, I wasn't you know, shooting up or raping anyone during my football career. So it was more just the aura of that. You know what I mean? It was really powerful to me. And you know, growing up in Australia, you only get to see the Ray Lewises. You only get to see the guys that are on the cover of Madden. We don't get to see all the rest. Like now, it's so different. I can see everyone's, you know, family, wife and kids ready to go to holiday because they just post it on social media, and it's like, wait, this dude's actually not that tough. He just goes to Turks and Caicos every 3 weeks, you know? Like it's for me, it was like I got a lot from the movies and watching highlight tapes on YouTube, you know?
We have somebody like that.
And what's wrong with going to Turks?
I don't know. I've never been.
Turks? Hold on, time out.
you just touched Marvin's ice cream eating soul with that question. That comment.
Petty.
No, because I'll actually be there. I'll actually be in Turks in 3 weeks. That's why I'm like, hold on, what's wrong with Turks?
The next episode from Turks and Caicos, huh?
That's it. Petty, what you got as we wrap this topic up for Jesse?
I love that you brought up Latimer from the program, because my next question kind of pertains to the face paint, and it's kind of a 2-in-1, but they work together. You talked about like coming from playing in front of 6 people in Australia to junior college, which seemed like crazy, and then first game against Fresno, 100,000. That's nuts. What was the first though real like, holy shit, this is different moment? And also we love that. Like you talk about Latimer. Well, that's our generation. We love that maniac type of player. So you were very endearing to a lot of fans with the face paint, the mohawk, and that shit.
Mm-hmm.
So but who was that guy that at the end of the game you looked at and was like, holy shit, that guy may be crazier than I was? So what was that coming of age moment, SEC wise, whatever? And who was the one dude you're like, holy shit, that guy he may be more nuts than me?
Yeah. Okay. I would say that. I would say. I'll start in reverse. I didn't really come across anyone like that. There was a couple of guys that played tough, but I feel like I was probably outdoing them in the crazy part. You know what I mean? Like, because I wasn't really putting it on. You know what I mean? I'm kind of like that, and you know, people at Alabama didn't really like believe in that, but like I was walking around campus with the mohawk and the tank top and flip-flops like during the winter, and people thought I was outrageous, but I was just like, I was from Australia. I was like, I wasn't used to anything, so I was just doing me pretty much. And I think just the disparity between what people in Alabama would say normal and what my normal was already like, I woke up being that guy, and I wasn't really trying. And then once I started playing, and I was actually, you know, I wasn't a bum. I was like, you know, actually playing and doing well. The face paint, and it connected the image a bit better together. So it kind of, I don't know, it didn't start for me as like an image thing. It was just coming out of me. Like, this is what I had to do. But like the face paint thing is a super funny story, because that's where me and Saban first butted heads. So, like, to the point where it was like, yeah, it was interesting. I didn't know how to like move forward. I just tried to like hold my ground as best I could. So it was like Kent State game was my first game. So my whole family was there, and this was probably the moment where it was like, oh shit. Chris Rump was my defensive line coach, and that week he pretty much told me like, hey, you're starting at defensive end and all that sort of stuff. So like, get your shit together. I was like, oh crap. And my whole family and a bunch of my friends have flown over from Australia. So I had 16 people there that first game. This is the first time they've seen me play ever in the U.S. because we didn't have any money to fly them over when I wasn't at Alabama. And so it was pretty eye-opening, to be honest. Like, I picked him up from the airport. Pretty funny story. I didn't have a license, so I just was picking up from the airport on the whim that I wouldn't get stopped. And like I had two vans full of my family, grandparents, everything, and we get back to Tuscaloosa at like 10 p.m. pick from the airport, and stopped at the lights there, right on the strip there, and this car pulls up beside me, recognizes me, and just starts yelling at me like "Roll Tide," screaming all that. And my parents thought this guy was going to try and fight me. And I'm like, no, I'm like, this kid's just a student. Like he's just like, the game is coming up, so they're fired up. So they were like this tight little group. They were just walking around like nervous. They were so scared. And I remember my parents. The last time they saw me play was probably, they made up most of the crowd. And then the next time they see me, it's 100,000 people in Bryant-Denny, and like my name's coming up as one of the starters, like a little video or whatever on the TV. And like my parents took a bunch of photos. Like the whole family was pretty much crying watching me run out, because the last time I ran out of any sort of tunnel, it probably wasn't to 100,000 people. And I think that was probably the moment where I'm like, okay, we're doing this here. And like after the game, the Sabans, Miss Terry and coach took my family back to their house, and we gave them a bunch of like stuff from Australia because they love Australia. And, so it was a pretty eye-opening experience for me, because I played all right. And I was like, I didn't like shit my pants or anything like that. So we were doing okay. And so I was like, oh, it all went positive. So that was a really big moment for me that sticks with me. And obviously the next game was Penn State, which I started at as well. And it was like, okay, football got real after that. But the face paint story was that Kent State game. So like I go into the game, I'm like, I'm trying to mentally get myself ready. I'm starting first game coming from Australia. I can make some shit happen. And like all the way back to when I first started playing football, I would always paint my face. I painted it when I played back in Australia because I just thought that's what people did. I saw it in the movie. So I'm like, damn, you got to paint your face if you got to be tough. That's what you got to do. And people were like, oh, is it for the glare or the lights? I was like, I don't know. I said, we're just going to do it. So I just started doing it, and it sort of stuck the whole way through junior college and everyone. And, everyone pretty much was like hooked on like, okay, Jesse's a little deranged, so we'll just keep letting him do it. And, no one said anything. And then I get to this first game, Kent State. I'm getting ready. I'm in my locker, the old wooden ones before they, redid the locker room. And I'm sitting there, and my roommate, he's worried because he's like, I've never seen anyone paint their face. He was like, at Alabama. And I'm like, well, here we go. Not just like a little bit of eye black. Like I had fucking like, it was like crazy. And I painted my face in the bathrooms because I couldn't see. And then I come out and I'm getting ready, and everyone's looking at me like, holy shit. It was a mix between like, okay, Jesse's going to try and fucking eat someone's face today. And then some of the coaches were like I remember, it's funny. I remember Coach Terry Jones and Kendall Moorhead. Oh boy. They looked at me like they seen a ghost, man. They were like, oh, this he's got some issues here. And then, so coach sees me, and, he's walking around this little piece of paper like this big, reading it, looking back, and he just glances at me. He glances right back. And then I see him go to one of the guys, come over here. The first one was Springer, the equipment guy, come over here. And I saw him talking to Springer. I'm like, fuck, he's talking about me. And then I'm like, keep doing my warm up. Springer comes up to me first. Hey, coach said you got to wipe that shit off your face. And I told him, I looked right up and I said, I'm not doing that. And then he was like, all right.
I did my job.
Yeah. And then,
I'm trying, coach.
The next guy was
you tell this guy.
Jeff Allen. It was it was one of the other athletic trainers, and he was like, hey, everyone's been saying, hey, you need to wipe that shit off. And I was like, I'm not doing that. And like, it was kind of a running joke between even my roommate was like, oh, fuck. It's like, because he wasn't playing or nothing. So he was just like, all right, man, well, yeah, good luck with everything. And I just didn't budge. Coach never directly came to me. He just sent all these little minions. And I was just like, next. If coach came out to me and said, hey, wipe that shit off, I probably would have rethought it for a split second. Because he sent some cronies over. I was like, nah, not doing it. And then I just wrote it out. And then, you know, in the back of my mind, I was purposely out of the eyesight of Saban for a good amount of time. You know, I was just fucking wandering between lockers. Like, he won't see me if I hide, you know, with special teams or whatever. And then, you know, by the time everyone was getting ready, my helmet was on. So I'm like, all right, cool. He can't see me. And then it kind of just went from there. But that happened every week. So like next game, Penn State, I'm like, all right, I'm rocking the white face paint this week. I go to like a certain store, I buy white face paint, all that jazz, and I paint my face white, like even more intense. Like I was on like some Chris Angel shit. And and then Saban, same thing. He sends another dude over, hey, you gotta wipe that shit. It was Cochran. That's what it was. Oh, Cochran comes over, hey, wipe that shit off. And I just looked at him and I said, can't do it. And he's just like, fuck. He's like, all right, man, you got to deal with coach. And then it just went like that my whole time. Same with like I had an earring that I couldn't take out. It was like a metal gauge. It was like a gold thing I couldn't take out. And I told coach, I can't take it out, man. Like it's either rip my ear or I take it out. So he made me tape it up every game. And that was already annoying me. I was like, dude, I was fucking, some days I'd forget to take it off. And I'd walk around for 2 days and I'd have freaking brown tape on my ear for 2 days. I wouldn't even notice. And so he already had like these, not grievances, but he was already like, all right. And I think after I started playing good and getting towards like, you know, my senior year, he must have just been like, man, fuck this kid. He ain't listening. You know what I mean? I was still playing. You know, I was still, I would say, doing everything by the Coach Saban book. And, you know, I think the funniest thing was my senior day, which I have never got the professional photos for, but I have like the ones that are this big. And I literally mimicked Lattimore's face paint on my senior day, like fully around my eyes, black and white, everything, like as best I could. And Saban is just Saban and me and my dad getting a photo. For me personally, is hilarious because he hated me painting my face. It was just I looked like a fucking clown mixed with like Tech 9, you know, standing next to him. And
that's hilarious.
But you know, I think
awesome.
It was just one of those things, right? You got to have that, like, you know, give and take. Like I never was in trouble. Like I was on the leadership group. You know, I was doing everything the right way. I just wanted to express a little something, and I was just one of those things I just wouldn't budge on. As well, it was like, dude, if I wipe it off, my face is, I'm going to look like I'm doing blackface if I try to wipe it off. You know what I mean? So my whole face would have been like all black almost if I tried to wipe it off. So I was like, I'm like, man, we're riding it out. And I didn't get cut or, you know, run into the ground. So I survived to tell the tale.
That's awesome.
So much to take away from that. Like you said that so nicely in your Australian accent that what you were basically saying is I punked out the entire damn staff the whole time I was at Alabama.
No,
and I was a 330-pound dude hiding between lockers with face paint on.
Yeah,
how do you hide that? But
it's kind of hard to hide, bud, when you're that size.
Jesse,
I try not to say it too much just in case Saban gets social media one day and someone tags him and me saying some stupid shit. And it's like, you were doing what, you know? So.
All right,
we've had other people on this show say much dumber. You're right. That wasn't even dumb. That was funny. That was awesome. But Reuben Foster has saved everybody from here on out on this show with Saban story. So you're good.
That's true.
Perfect.
All right. Before I get your opinion or the guys get your opinion on the current team, there's one thing I feel like we have to touch having you on here. Now, I've heard your story countless times on interviews as well as articles, but I don't think our audience has quite heard it and really embraced it. So early in your NFL career, you get the news that you have cancer. But you didn't sulk. You didn't hang your head. Matter of fact, your approach to the whole thing was pretty legendary. And then when you finally overcome it, the doctor said you're going to be out for X amount of time. You said, hell no, I ain't doing that. But if you would, before we get to talking about the current team, talk to us about that process and your mindset overcoming it.
Yeah. I'll try and give you the elevator pitch for this part of the story. But it was like my third year in the NFL. I was coming back. I was like doing really well. Everything was feeling good in my body. And I think it was second OTAs leaned towards the fall. And I do a lot of jiu-jitsu still. And I was training at AMC with Demetrius Johnson, his little crew of guys. And I just remember we were mucking around. I got kicked to my side, just messing around with these guys. And I was like, didn't think of anything. And then like a week later, I just start pissing blood. And I'm like, okay, it's a little spicy. I'm like, I don't know what this could be. And I left it. You know what I mean? I left it. You know, I'm very hard-headed. There wasn't a lot of pain with it. So I was like, it's just blood. It's just blood. We'll see what else comes from this. And then I left it so long, I started pissing clots of blood where I could hear it hit the toilet. So it was I have photos somewhere. I was going to say one of my other phones has a photo on it, but it looks like you just squeeze like ketchup into like Coca-Cola. That's kind of what it looks like. And so like this was probably, I go maybe 5 or 6 weeks pissing blood, not telling anyone, still working out, like just training. And like my bathroom smells like a butcher because it's just so much blood going through my bathroom. And I was like, all right, cool. It's getting to the point. I called my agent because I still haven't told him yet either. And I'm just like, hey, man, just a heads up. I'm pissing clots of blood. Do you think I should tell the team? And he was like, yeah, let's tell them. I wasn't sure how it would go. Like I just came off a knee injury. I'm just now playing good. I was starting at the time leading into camp. And I'm like, man, I cannot catch a break out here. So I go to the trainer. He's actually stretching Russell Wilson at the time. So I go in there. It's kind of a weird moment to go in. And I said, hey, man, I got a little bit of blood in my urine. And he's like, cool. Honestly, it's pretty normal, like playing in the NFL or playing football in general. Like you get hit all over, so it could be something there. And he gives me this little cup. I'm like, all right, cool. I go fill it up. And I come back and I give him the sample. And it's this red sample. And I wish I had the photo because it's unbelievable to see. But I'm there. So I give him the sample. And he looks at me with like the straightest face. And he was like, are you fucking kidding me? And I'm like, I thought I was in trouble. Like I pissed on the lid or didn't seal it up properly or something. And I was like, no. I'm like, I could fill another one up if you want. And he just stopped. He put the thing down. He said, sit down right here. And just fucking sprinted out of there. And I was like looking at Russell. I'm like, something's wrong here. I'm like, I don't know. But he was going to call an ambulance. And I was like, oh, man. I'm like, something's up. And he was like, you need to sit down and we got to wait. We got to take you to the hospital right now. And at the time, I'm getting ready to lift as a group and all that. So I just said, in true Jesse Williams fashion, I just said, all right, I'll go do this workout. And by the time I get done, the ambulance should be here. So I finished the workout. And then I ended up, jumping in the shower and getting ready to go to the hospital. And, it was a pretty weird situation, to be honest. I didn't have a lot of pain. But to preface that, I would also say I have a reasonably high pain tolerance for a lot of things, maybe from, tattooing or whatever. But so I was fine. And then I go in there to get a biopsy. Absolutely nothing had come from it. They're going to send away the rest of the stuff, test or whatever. So I go back to my house, and I live 2 doors down from another defensive tackle from Penn State named Jordan Hill. Amazing guys. One of my best friends, good guy. And he knew I was like, I missed the walkthrough because I was in hospital. And so I'm getting home, I'm sitting at my computer desk, and I was like, damn, my back is so tight for some reason. And I stood up and I went to stretch my back, and I just like face planted on the ground. Like it was like a wave of pain just like washed over me. Like it was unbelievable. And I jump on the phone. I like deliriously wake up. I call Jordan straight away. I'm like, hey, you got to take me to the hospital right now. Something's going on. So I like almost crawl to the door, pick myself up, and like stumble down, jump into his car, and I'm like losing consciousness. I'm like in and out of consciousness. I can barely breathe. Like I don't know if I was like going into shock or like I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know how to diagnose any of this. Like I just went from practicing to now I'm like about to pass out in this dude's passenger seat. So he gets to Bellevue Hospital. I'm pretty much passed out. Like I can't move or nothing. So he picks me up by my like upper body and drags me into the emergency. And I'm like in and out. They throw me into like a wheelchair and drag me in, and then so the shit hits the fan from there. Then they get the results back from the day before, and they're like, yeah, your kidney is getting completely crushed. It looked like a little hand was like this, completely crushed my whole kidney. And so I was pretty much just pissing straight blood like through it. And so I go in there, they're like, oh, we got a test to see if it's cancer or whatever, and we have to do like a biopsy. And like I was awake, and they stick this like needle with like a little gun on it, and it shoots it down and grabs a piece of your kidney and pulls it out while you're awake. I'm watching it on the TV while I'm there. And, you know, they cut it into 1,000 pieces and test it for cancer or whatnot. And then, you know, at this point, it's a couple of days later, still waiting on the results. It takes about a week. Seattle's already flown my parents over. You know, everyone but me thinks I'm dying. So it's getting pretty spicy, the situation. And I remember picking up my parents from the airport, and very tough situation. I do what every person would do in my circumstance. We went straight to the mall, and I took them to the outlets to buy stuff, purely because we can't get anything in Australia. So I was like, let's break the ice with this. And then I was at a place north of Seattle called Puyallup, and had these outlets there on the res. And I remember standing at the Nike store. You know, there's like it's always glass, and they have like stickers and shit. You can kind of see through the glass. And my parents went in. I was like, oh, I'm getting a call. And it came up, Dr. John Gore is an oncologist from the University of Washington. I was like, oh shit. I'm like, this is the call. So my parents went in, and I pick up the phone, and like, I'm not big on like cliche shit, but this moment was like, it was like a movie. Like everything, it was like, I felt like there was no sound around me, and I could just hear his voice, pretty defining. It's a very deep voice. And he just told me on the phone, he's like, hey, we got, you know, some good news and some bad news. And I'm like, cool. I'm like, give me the bad news. And he's pretty much like, well, it's definitely cancer. And I said, holy shit. I was like, give me the good news then. And he said, we can do surgery in 2 days. And so we're bringing everyone in, and we're going to get it done ASAP. And I'm like, I just remember looking through the glass. I'm looking at my parents. I'm on the phone. I'm just like, I just literally shake my head like that. And I just remember they just dropped all their shit. Everyone came out. Everyone's crying and all that. And, you know, I tell this a lot of times when I do speak on this is I was the only one. I'm not a big crier, but I never cried the whole time. I was glad it was me that had cancer, because if it was my parents or my son or something like that, I couldn't control it. But I reference this a lot when I do speak. At that current moment of my life, when I was in the best shape of my life. I was the strongest. If I looked in the mirror, I was looking at the baddest motherfucker I'd ever come across in my life. To me, in my head. Mm-hmm. So I was glad it was me. I couldn't control if my parents. I couldn't control it, but I knew what I could control was me, and that this is going to be the determining factor in the outcome of this. And that's pretty much how I walked forward with it. I treated cancer like I had the flu. You know, it was like, do we take a piece of the cancer? Is 12 weeks easier on longevity, or they take the whole thing and come back in 8 weeks? I said, take the whole fucking thing. I said, I got to get back to play this first game. And, you know, I had my surgery on the Thursday. It came out in the media on the Wednesday, and like shit hit the fan. I tried to stay out the limelight as best I can. I was just getting destroyed online from people showing support and whatnot. And I treated the surgery like a game day, man. I told my parents the night before, I said, you don't need to talk to me in the morning. I'll begin ready to do what I need to do. And I had my headphones on like I was going to play. I wore like a little suit that I would usually wear to the games. I wore that to the hospital. I drove myself there, drove my family there. And, yeah, I went in there, and, you know, I remember I have the photos still. I told my dad I was getting prepped to go on this surgery, which, to be honest, is a reasonably large surgery, removing a vital organ. And I told him, I said, take a photo of this. I was like looking straight down the camera, and I posted on my Instagram at the time, which I was getting a million comments on everything. And I just posted no fear in my heart. And there's this photo of me looking straight at the camera because I didn't know what the outcome was. Like, it was just that it was the tip of like, man, if shit hits the fan, if they go in there, it's something else. Like, we're going down a different path after this. But I went in there going like, man, just get this thing over and done with. Like, let's roll. And then I wake up, you know, I'm not a big fan of hospitals. I've had some pretty bad experiences in my lifetime. And I wake up, I'm supposed to be in there for 4 days, do this recovery thing or whatever. And I wake up, I'm pressing this button like crazy. I'm pressing the button. I'm like, yo, get someone in here right away. They run in thinking I'm in pain or whatever. And I just told them, I said, I got to get out of here, man. I'm like, I can't be in here. This is like too much. And they're like, the only way you can get out of here, you got to walk around the ward twice and you got to take the catheter out, which the catheter is probably the most exciting part. So that's a spicy experience. She pulled that out while I was awake. So I was like, oh wow. I was like, that's thick. And then I walked around the ward. I was lucky that I was so strong, like just my extremities. Like I had no control of my core. I literally just like dipped myself up out of the bed and like started walking around pushing my little stick. So I did my laps. So by the time my parents came the next day, I was already out. I was dressed and I was sitting on the bed waiting for them to pick me up. And, you know, I didn't tell the team this or anything, but I actually drove my car home and I stopped to get groceries on the way home. And so I was supposed to be in there. I was supposed to be in there 4 days. I was in there, I think 12 total hours. I was in there from check-in to check-out, 12 hours, take the kidney out, and I was out. And then, you know, I went to the VMAC, the Seattle facility. I walk in there, I see that same trainer, and they see me. And they're like, "Hey, when are you getting surgery?" I was like, "Oh, I had it last night." And everyone was just like, "What the fuck are you doing here, man? Like, what is going on?" I'm like, "I'm fine." I said, "I come to pick up some Advil or something," because I didn't take any painkillers. I didn't want to take any painkillers. I wasn't trying to be tough. I knew a lot of people in my journey that painkillers led to some bad situation. So I was like, I can do it. I'm fine. I don't need any pain medicine or nothing. And then I get back to my house. My parents are all there, and I'm sitting on the balcony with my dad, and I'm like, I got 7 weeks and 5 days until we play against San Diego. I was like, I think I can get back for that. So I'll just put everything into coming back. And like, I told him, head trainer, my oncologist, they were all looking at me like I was fucking stupid. They were like, there's no way. Like, you're supposed to be out for a year before your body comes back to anything. I just didn't believe him. I just didn't think that was going to happen. And so then next day I was back at the facility. I'm like trying to work out and trying to like hobble around and like do stuff, whatever they would let me do. I was pretty much just trying to like push the limit a little bit. And then as soon as they let me walk, I was jogging around. As soon as they let me jog, I was sprinting. As soon as they let me out on the field, I was practicing. And, you know, they wanted me to wear a big pad. I was like, nah, that's gay. I don't want that. And I was like, just let me, if I get hit, I get hit. And, you know, I did everything I possibly could, put myself in a good situation. Then, you know, 7 weeks, 5 days later, I started playing. I played in all those 4 preseason games. And awesome. I think for me, it was like, health-wise, it was a terrible decision. I don't know why they let me come back and play because my body was fucked. But you know, personally, as me, I had to do that. Like, it was just like a challenge for me, not to prove everyone else that I was tough or nothing, but just to prove myself that I still am that inside. I still got everything that I need to do. And then, you know, pretty much retired after that because my body was, you know, falling to bits. And right. I just didn't give myself enough time to rest. And I knew from an early age that I wasn't going to be defined by football. I wanted to do more for, you know, not just my family, but the world. And I knew if I took a year off, I would never be able to make it back in here. So it's too competitive. I said I would have been lost into the shadows. I never wanted to be a journeyman and travel around. I like buy-in. I like being a part of something. I didn't want to replicate that anywhere else. Even though I almost signed with Atlanta the year later after I went back to Alabama and coached. Dan Quinn called me out of the blue. He's like, "Hey, come work out." And I think from that, after that day, like playing in Seattle, was just the next chapter of my life. But I just never believed in what other people were saying and what the doctors were saying, which I don't recommend everyone does. But I just, for that certain situation, a lot of the belief was in myself and being able to control my controllables and leave the rest up to, the doctors or everybody else, It was a pretty wild experience because I think I was only like 25 at the time and very eye-opening. A lot of people say it like a big shift in your personality when you get cancer or have to go through like near-death experience or whatever. But for me, it was just like it reaffirmed everything how I was in regards to my values and like hard working and no drinking and smoking. I probably would have been dead if I was drinking and smoking. My kidney would have been wrecked already, So it put me in a good position. And for me, it's just a good tool and a good leverage point to be able to express what type of person I was at the time and what type of values I have that have stretched much longer than, one situation.
Man, that was powerful. Thank you for sharing that, Jesse. We greatly appreciate that. Before we begin to wrap things up, I want to remind everybody here at the Bama Standard, we always have the biggest stars, the best stories. Of course, Jesse told us a truly amazing story tonight. Well, next week, I got to let you know who our guest is. And Smoke, you've talked about him quite often. You've said he's probably the best center you've ever played with and maybe even seen at Alabama. We're staying with the big, strong guys up front. Next week, former Alabama center, all SEC center, Alonzo Ephraim will be with us. So y'all come back. We got more for you during this entire offseason. No reason to get bored because we have all the excitement right here. So let's go around the room real quick. I'll let Jesse go last. Just tell folks how they can find us. Starts out Marvin Constant, up to Smoke, then Steven, Daniel, and then Jesse will close it out.
Well, you can find me on Instagram, Constant45. You can find me on X, Constant451. And Jesse, I'm still holding, baby. 5 years old, baby. We still holding.
Smoke.
Listen, I don't even want to follow that. I mean, Jesse, you did an incredible job today, man. I appreciate that story so much. You know what? You can find me anywhere Jesse's at, because I go to war with you, champ. But on X, you can find me at Coach GV Dixon. Petty and I on Mondays, opening kick, 7 Central, 8 Eastern. Is that right, my man, Petty?
That's it. You're asking the time challenge here.
Yeah, and that's why I asked, because I know if you got it right, I'll get it right. And be on the lookout in June for Constantly Smoking coming back better than ever. Marvin got to figure out how this internet's going to work for him, so we got to figure it out.
Stephen M. Smith, you're a man about town. Your show is red hot. The articles are red hot. If people don't know, they better figure it out real quick. Talk to them about how they can find you.
Well, you can find me at
not you. You can find me at Coach M. Smith on X, Coach M. Smith there. You can find me also here with these fine gentlemen on Tuesdays. On Sundays, you can find me on here talking Bama with JB, JT, and Herb. On Mondays, you can find me, Bama Vision. We're taking Stephen A. Smith out the frame. Monday mornings, 9 a.m. Bama Visions. Get everything ready. We're talking Bama football. And I'm shooting these articles out like the bakery now. So we got articles coming out, Bama Standard Network. We're writing, we're putting them out there. And, man, Jesse, you remain in that monster, man. That story, man. Brought a tear to my face for a minute there.
Powerful stuff, man. Powerful stuff. Petty, let the folks know how they can find you. You've got a lot going on, but if they don't know, they figure it out.
Like my man Smoke said, you can catch us on Monday nights, opening kick, 7 Central, 8 Eastern. Then I'm here on Tuesday nights with the guys on the Bama Standard. And then following this, I'm on the final whistle at 8 Central, 9 Eastern with my man Matt Caddell, Chris James, Dan James, I'm probably not going to make it tonight, as I informed y'all earlier. My bicep going bad surgery. I'm probably going to pass out here soon. Yeah, Marvin, I'm tired of seeing your muscles, so I tried to get a bicep in a row, and they cut in the bot. They just did it all wrong. And but I usually am here with those guys an hour later. Probably not tonight. But more than anything, man, Jesse, like. I want to find the guy who coined the phrase "all men are created equal" to call his ass a liar one more time, because, dude, to hear your story is inspiring, but just the way you tackled it, man, I think cancer, you're fortunate if it hasn't touched your life in some way. So to hear your story is inspiring for some of those, man. My stepsister's going through it right now. So, man, just having you, Austria, just great, man. I enjoyed this more than anything tonight. It's always a pleasure to have guys like you come on and share your stories. The fans love it. They get to know it deeper. Like I said, man, that Jesse, you're such – I would love to go deeper, because your demeanor in this show versus the demeanor on the field, two different guys. You're obviously one of those that has this just great person. Then you get on the field and a switch flips. But, no, it's been great sharing the stage with you tonight, my man.
Yeah, Jesse, we all echo that. We're so grateful to have this time with you. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Definitely need to get you back. We want to hear your thoughts on the current team. Before you go, tell folks how they can find you and then what you got going on, and we'll close it up.
Yeah, you can find me. It's at The Monster, MONSTAR, on all socials usually. But I'm in Australia, so if you want to catch me in person, that'll be tough. Unless you want to jump on a plane. But I think keep following what I'm doing in sending a lot of kids through our pathway in Australia to the US. We're placing them all over. I think my next goal is place one at Alabama. I speak to Courtney Morgan pretty regularly, so hopefully I'll get one across his desk sooner or later that he be able to pull the trigger on. So we're building at a pretty rapid rate, and we're spreading the good word of football and all the good values that come with it to kids that need that opportunity that are outside the U.S. So we're putting a dent in that right now. We're going to keep pushing on that until we run out of time. So I appreciate any platform we get to get on and sort of share a little bit of story and a little bit of message. It's been a crazy life to live, but it's probably my time where I get to share that and hopefully others get to learn from. Get a couple messages from that as well. So I enjoy it, and I appreciate you guys having me. And I'll have to get on next time to tell you about my other thoughts about Alabama, because I've been there a bunch of times recently, and I'm hopefully gonna be back there in a couple of months. So we'll see how close they'll let me thread the needle in what I can say. But I'm looking forward to the season. Hopefully get over there a couple of times. So it should be fun.
Awesome, man. We're looking forward to circling back and hearing from you regarding that. But listen, folks, we appreciate everyone who's been with us tonight. Thank you for everyone in the audience. Thank you for everyone who always gives us support. Thank you to Lamstone Company for providing the platform for us. Thank you for Title Towel, Whitwell Sports for being sponsors of ours. And we will going to see you next week. Until then, roll tide, everyone.
Roll tide.